Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask a question. He basically wants to know, hey Jason, I know that you think most supplements suck, you're kind of anti-supplement, and that's an understatement. But what about vitamin D3, omega-3s, creatine, what about those? It's a good question. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skill at my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Alright guys, normally with supplements, yeah, I do say the science doesn't support supplements. I'm not talking about supplement science that supplement companies pay for and stuff. I'm talking about independent testing and long-term trials done by various universities, medical doctors, everything else on these different products. And you guys got to remember, a lot of products that have been tested out there, you're talking about people who are giving them intravenously or large amounts of them for people who are like burn victims and stuff who can't eat normal food. This is where protein powders and stuff came from. Doesn't mean that they're actually better than eating real food. It's that a lot of people who are in ICU and critical care in a hospital can't eat real food. They can't. They don't have the choice. And by real food, I don't mean Rich Piana's real fucking food, god damn it. I'm talking about actual food. But as far as these three products go, these three supplements, these are very, very simple substances that are easy to get in isolation, not as part of some matrix. They're all relatively inexpensive, and yeah, they all have some science showing, at least decent amounts of science showing that there are benefits to them. Now, does that mean that everyone should be using them? No, and I'm going to jump into each one a little bit here for you guys. I'm going to save the two for last that I think have the most benefits here that actually a lot of people should be taking. I'm going to start with creatine. I'm just not a supporter of creatine. And I know as a science guy who normally says you shouldn't even consider a product until it has at least 5 independent tests showing a benefit. Meaning if you're going to spend $5 on something and it doesn't have at least 5 independent sets of studies on it showing the benefits, don't throw your $5 away. People say, well, it's only $5. Well, that's $5 fucking dollars that you just threw away. If you guys want to throw away $5 a month, hell, 1 million people could send that to me every month. I'd make $5 million a month if you just want to wipe your ass with $5. You guys understand how that works. It's still $5. No one is successful in life by throwing away $5 bills all day long for no benefit. Just throwing that out there. That's not how you make it in life. You're certainly not going to accumulate wealth with that mentality. You need to see a return on your investment if it's a single dollar. Or at least take a calculated risk. Now, that being said, creatine actually has a lot more than 5 studies. It's got dozens of studies showing a benefit. I still don't use it and I don't support it because I can't seem to replicate the studies in real life. What I mean is, I've read all these studies in detail. They seem to be well done. All these people see a benefit. And then I have a personal bias against creatine because I've tried it multiple times and it didn't do to me what it did in the studies. Now, 30% of people are non-responders. That is what a lot of the studies say. Like 1 in 3 people don't respond to creatine at all. I happen to be one of those. So therefore, that gives me, my anecdote tells me this product doesn't work. Obviously, I would never take it again. Why would I waste my money? It doesn't work. But does it mean it'll work for other people? Maybe. Maybe. Good chance. The question becomes, is it enough of a difference to make a difference? The problem is that, you look at all these strength gains seen in the studies. I've never seen it replicated in the real world in anyone. And what I mean is people who I knew personally, who I am friends with, who I've trained with. I've watched over like a dozen people over the years go on creatine, and I didn't see any of the changes in their performance. People I've worked out with, friends, everything else, they take creatine and they're like, oh yeah, it's working, but I'm looking at their numbers and tracking it. There was no change in their progression. They didn't show a benefit. Like with me, I've taken the loading doses and didn't gain a single pound from the loading doses. Again, you're supposed to gain this water weight. I didn't gain anything. And I tried several different brands over the years. But, I've watched this with people. I don't see it actually doing anything in anyone in the real world. Now, could there be other bias there? Of course. Maybe it's because we were all from Texas. Maybe people in Texas have a different set of genes and we're non-responders. Maybe we eat so much beef in Texas that we're non-responders to creatine. That's one of the things that was noted. People who eat a fair amount of red meat don't respond. They don't respond to creatine. Because we already have, I guess, enough creatine levels from our diet. But it kind of comes back to the point of it's a dietary supplement, and that's the point. If you eat a diet that has enough creatine in it to get the benefits you want for performance, there doesn't seem to be any benefit to taking creatine, to supplementing it. And that's the point that it needs to be driven home. Like anything else, it depends on your diet. If you're a vegetarian or a vegan, yeah, creatine might be worthwhile. For people who eat a fair amount of meat, not so much so. And the point is, the supplement industry pushes people away from meat and towards protein powder. So yeah, maybe the people who are big on supplements, taking all these protein powders, maybe they're the ones who will benefit from creatine. But for people who are eating a lot of wild game, a lot of beef, things like that, creatine doesn't seem to do anything. And it's never done anything for me personally. So it's going to come down to the individual and their personal needs based upon their diet, their lifestyle. At the end of the day, it does seem to work according to the data, but it's a dietary supplement to make up for a non-ideal diet. And that's the point we could get to. Large amounts of meat seems to be an ideal diet. Not necessarily large amounts, but at least significant amounts seems to be part of the ideal diet for serious lifters and strength athletes. Seems to be the case. I'm not saying you can't do it as a vegan, but if you're going to do it as a vegan, you might get 3% more performance if you take creatine. There's the caveat. Or a vegetarian or someone who just doesn't really eat meat. You might benefit from creatine. You might get that 2 or 3% edge from it. All right, and maybe for you it's worth that $5 a month. Anyone else, $5 I could spend on something else. Hell, that's $5 I could put in stocks and bonds every month. That could add up over 20 years, guys. I mean, when you think about it in those terms, hell, that $5 that you're spending on creatine every month when you already have a good diet, you could put that in a savings account. You could put it into some mutual funds. I mean, that $5 a month turns into $60 a year. You do that for 20 years in interest, you might be able to buy something with it one day. Just saying. But that being said, on to the next thing. Vitamin D3. I'm big on vitamin D3. I take it. I supplement it. I take it. I'm particularly big on it depending upon where you're living. Almost anyone will probably benefit from vitamin D3 in the wintertime. It will affect a lot of other hormones in your body. It will affect bone density. It can affect mood, sex drive, energy, everything else. It seems to help with depression. The winter blues that people get, the depression they get during darker months, particularly in darker countries. I used to live in the UK. All right, I took vitamin D3 to stave off depression there. Depression's a big issue in darker countries, and it's going to be more pronounced depending upon how much melanin you have in your skin versus the amount of sunlight you're exposed to. So people who are in darker countries or further away from the equator with darker skin are going to probably benefit more from vitamin D3. I'm a pretty fair person, not the fairest, but fairly pale, and I live in a sunny region right now. So I probably will benefit the least from vitamin D3. I still take it in the winter. I still take it in the winter time. And when I have lived historically in more mountainous areas, or I'm traveling in other areas for a period of time where it's darker, or like when I lived in the UK, I took it year round. Vitamin D3's got good evidence showing it works, and people need to understand the difference between vitamin D3 versus a multivitamin. People will say, well, why are you saying it works but multivitamins don't? Well, I've done whole videos on that, because we're talking about what can be studied, and a single vitamin can be absorbed when it's in a concentrated dose versus a broad spectrum that can cause complications with absorption of other substances mixed with it at the same time. There are issues with just throwing a bunch of random vitamins and minerals together and consuming them all at one time. There actually can be absorption issues, malabsorption issues, toxicity from that. Vitamin D3, we're talking about the studies, we're just looking at it in its pure form, and it's your sunshine hormone, and it's beneficial, and a lot of people don't get enough. But the thing is, that's been countered by a lot of foods being fortified with it. Tons of foods are fortified with vitamin D3 to ensure basic survival of humans in different regions, because the reality is, without vitamin fortified foods, some people would not be able to survive even in these first world countries they live in due to not enough vitamin D3. Their health will suffer for it. It could be problematic. But a lot of foods, everything from breads to cereals to milk, are fortified with it to make sure that children are getting enough for their bones and everything else. So that's the other thing. If you're eating a lot of vitamin fortified foods, you may not benefit from taking additional vitamin D3. It's just going to depend upon your diet. Like anything else, it's a dietary supplement. If you aren't getting enough, you're not either getting enough sunlight exposure for your skin tone, or you're not getting enough through your diet, then you might want to consider supplementing it. But that doesn't mean everyone should take it, but it's got good science backing it for those who need it. All right, on to omega-3s. You're going to see a trend here. Well, it depends upon your diet. No, omega-3s have been found, particularly fish oils, have been found over the years to have various health benefits, cardiac health benefits, things like that. Problem is they've been over-touted, and you have people like Pullups who are telling people to take 40 or 50 capsules a day, which is complete bullshit. There's no science to back any of that. There is no science to back any of that. This is pseudoscience to sell products. Fish oil should cost you a couple pennies a day. All right, most people are going to see the health benefits from fish oil if they have a diet without enough omega-3s, meaning you don't eat any wild game, grass-fed meat. You don't eat a lot of green vegetables. Green vegetables have omega-3s in them. Cantaloupe has omega-3s in them. Certain nuts and seeds have omega-3s in them, and it's trace amounts, but you only need trace amounts for health. The health benefits, even for cardiac patients, is capped out at around 6 caps a day, 6 grams. Now, people are going to argue, well, what percentage? The standard one, the cheap ones, the ones that are like 180 grams of omega-3 per gram, right, or 180 milligrams, the ones that are only 18% omega-3, or whatever it happens to be, those cheap ones. That's what they're talking about in studies. They're not talking about these concentrated ones that supplement companies are trying to sell now. People need to get off this, oh, well, what amount of omega-3? The really cheap ones. The ones that have been around forever, long enough for them to do the studies on. Come on. For cardiac patients and people with major cholesterol problems, the health benefits cap off at around 5 or 6 of those caps every day. For most people, 1 to 3 of them is going to give you the health benefits that you need. You're buying sometimes 300 of these things for $5. That's anywhere from almost a year's supply to down to as much as 4 months supply for $5 or $6. All right, this is an inexpensive supplement. Now, the problem we get into is that for people who will benefit from this, people who don't eat a lot of green vegetables, or not eating much either grass-fed meat or wild game or omega-3 eggs or whatever you're happening to get it from. All right, there can be health benefits to it. But there can be health negatives when you take too much, like anything else. And this is why people have to recommend these mega doses to make any money, because look how cheap it is. All right, people who are spending $1 or $2 a month on a supplement, no one's getting rich off this. So that's why these con artists have to tell you to take large amounts. The problem, when we talk about, again, these cheap capsules, 10 of them a day, when people start taking 10 or more a day, there's data suggesting that their immune system gets compromised. It can hurt your immune system. It can make you more susceptible to colds, disease, everything else. So mega dosing fish oil and omega-3s can actually harm you. Like anything else, having too little is detrimental. Having just enough, a right amount, helps your health. Having too much, which would be the amount you would need for any companies to really make money selling them, to make any real profit, you would really need to take the amounts that harm you. All right, it can hurt your immune system. It can thin blood to some extent too, which is one of the reasons some cardiac patients are given like 6 of them a day. But it can hurt your immune system. It can make you more susceptible to colds, flu, diseases, everything else. So like anything else, there's an ideal range. And the reason you would supplement this is to put it into the ideal range for your overall health and your benefits. All right, you're not going to see any serious performance changes. People who think this is going to affect body composition or performance meaningfully, no, it's not. That's bullshit. But your overall health, overall well-being, yeah, to being in the ideal range. But like with anything else, too low is bad, but too high is also bad. So again, it's one of those supplements that anyone who takes it only needs a very, very small amount. And it's not going to be enough for companies to get rich off of. So again, that's why some people out there, Polquin, are promoting people taking 40 of them a day, 50 of them a day, instead of 3. Because otherwise they can't make any money off of it. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.